This is my favorite chess game ever. It was played by Nicolas Rossolimo, and although I just said that last name, he is not at all Italian, he's actually Russian. This man's is like from 4 countries. He was born in the Russian Empire. After acquiring the Greek citizenship in 1929, he immigrated to France. How does that make sense? I don't know. And then many times chess champion of Paris. Then he immigrated to the US in 1955, was a resident of New York until his death. This man has been traveling his whole life, playing chess, the dream. On his Wikipedia page, he literally has 4 countries under his name. Now you may have recognized his name, Rossolimo, which is a very famous name in chess, because a popular line in the Sicilian defense, the Rossolimo variation, is named after him. This game was played in Puerto Rico in 1967 and inspired me to play this opening for the entirety of my chess career so far. I mean, I still play this till this day. So let's start off. Nicolas Rossolimo has the white pieces here and plays e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6. We know this all well. This is the Italian. And here, after bishop c5, I still play this system till this day. It's c3. And here, white not only take up d4 and b4, we want to leverage this to push up d4, on gaining a tempo on this bishop and overall gaining the center. After knight f6, that's exactly what we do. d4, very nice. And now black takes, to which we take here, attacking the bishop. Now the bishop has 2 okay squares, bishop b6, which is not so good, and the correct move, which is bishop b4 check. Here, black avoid losing a tempo by checking the king and redirecting the gain of time towards the black pieces. And so here, bishop d2 is played. Now, a fun variation, if you're playing the white pieces, is king f1. I can't believe I haven't played this in Blitz before, but this is actually playable. Here, it's a little trap, I won't lie to you, but this is still very playable. Here, if black plays d6, the white pieces already win a piece with d5. And here we're attacking the knight and forcing the knight to disconnect from this bishop. The knight has to move, and then you just trade off the knight, and they play queen a4 check, and you fork and win a full piece up. And this is a very fun line. Rossolimo plays bishop d2, which I still play to this day. I love this move. It consolidates the center for the white pieces, and there's lines with knight takes e4, which was not played, but there's also bishop takes d4, knight takes, and here white defends on e4 perfectly. Super clutch. d5, which is theory, we take, knight takes, and now queen b3. And so here, white has an isolated pawn on d4, but has a lot of space to compensate for it, and notably a very strong bishop on this diagonal. Open lines. Overall, this middle game is said to be quite equal. Knight e7 was played here. A possible continuation is knight a5, queen a4, knight c6, and this is just a grandmaster draw by repetition here. That just goes on for infinity. Instead, we play on with knight e7, which I'm glad for because this game exists for that. Castles played, c6 to consolidate the knight. Now black will build a very strong resistance here, notably with bishop e6 coming on. I think after this is dealt with, maybe like rook b8 and then bishop e6, all to consolidate this knight very strongly in the center to block this isolated pawn. The number one thing you want to do to an isolated pawn is block it, restrict its movement, and then you want to attack it, and then you want to attack the defenders of it, and that's how you win, control, and conquer an isolated pawn. White moves rook e1, putting the rook on the e-file, castles, and now a4. a4 is a common plan to go to a5, just to prevent this queen to go to b6, and trading queens. White doesn't want to trade queens here because our isolated pawn would look very bad in the endgame. We have the isolated pawn to have the space in this middle game and to play this out, to have a good chance with this space and get our chances in, you know? So b6 is played, and now knight e5. Knight e5 takes a lot of space and lets some room for this knight f3 possibly, or knight e4. I often play this. Also, ideas is you go knight d3 and knight back to c5. Of course, not now because there's a pawn, but this would go against some bishop e6 ideas, which I also very much like. Bishop b7, and here a5. I really don't like bishop b7. It's kind of a gamble from the black pieces on whether or not they can get their bishop transparently out on this diagonal and active, which I think there's a lot of rust on this metal, and there's a lot of stuff in the way. A5, poking at b6, rook c8, and now knight e4. I really like these two knights here. Again, you really like to place your minor pieces and just overall pieces in the center for center control. And look how they dig at the opponent's lines here. It's very, very nice. And ultimately, these knights are going to serve a big purpose in this game, and I just want you to take in this theme because it's important for your future games. Here, queen c7, and now a6. a6, a great move. Great move. This is the type of move that you talk about in the locker room at halftime. What a move. a6 just puts the bishop back, tempo gaining move, and we won't see this bishop for the rest of the game, I can promise you that. Very, very nice move here. Queen h3. Here white plays queen h3, a quite ominous move. We don't really know why white is playing this, but it's all part of the plan. And once the plan unfolds, this move has so much clarity. It's such a beautiful move because it's all part of a plan. So that's why it's so important in the middle game to think out your plans. And then you can execute them, and these moves will seem less weird on the board because you have something to back it up. Knight f4, queen g4, tempo move. You like that when you're attacking. These tempo moves that pick at the opponent's weaknesses, undefended pieces, are really nice. Knight e d5 to defend this knight. And now rook a3, and we're starting to see why this queen moved out of b3 and came all the way to h3 to go to g4. Cleaning out this third rank, getting away from it, and positioning this queen straight through this king here. X-raying the king, and now what we are attempting here is a rook lift in chess. A rook lift is anytime you're lifting the rook above your median pawn structure to funneling it towards the king, and that's exactly what we do here. Rook a3, an atypical rook lift on the a file is one of the rarer ones because you have to go all the way through the board and slice through the entirety of the board to attack the king. But here it works because we have no pieces on the third rank. Knight e6, and here we take twice on d5, and ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is perhaps the most beautiful combination I have ever seen. My long time memory of seeing this was actually in a place I would never expect. I was looking through an opening book called Mastering the Chess Openings. I've talked about this book several times on the channel. Here it is. It's everything about e4, and I was particularly interested in the chapter on the Italian, from which I learned this opening. And the game reference they put from this opening, which made me play it for the next 15 years, was this game. And let me tell you, I've never seen, till this day, a more beautiful referenced game from an opening in an opening book. Like, this is just madness when you see the perspective of where I saw this from. And so you can imagine my shock to see this in an openings book. I hate openings. I hate learning openings. I'm more of a tactical guy. I work fluidly with pattern recognition, but I don't like structure. I don't like memorization. And this game reminded me that there can be structure and memorization for the beginning of the game, but then total bliss for the second part of the game. And this is what we have here. Pause the video to solve. Here it is white to play and win. It's one of the most beautiful combinations I've ever seen in my life. I saw it when I was 10, I'm seeing it when I'm 21, and I still can't believe it. It's absolutely beautiful. If you want, by the way, I can show off my favorite historical game, which is different than my favorite game ever. My favorite game ever is like a personal thing. My favorite historical game is for historical reasons and the cultural beauty of the game at that time. That can be for another video. Just let me know in the comments. Here, the white piece is played knight f6 check, a very sensible first move since this pawn is pinned and forces a reply in the black pieces. Now, the king has to go to h8. And now get ready because this is insane. The white piece is played queen g6. Queen g6. Queen g6. Sacrificing the queen. two different ways, without a check, in the most silent killer, vicious type of ways I've ever seen on a chessboard. Now, there are multiple replies that black can do here. So let's go through them all. And now you'll see how important of an actor this little fella is. Number one, the most obvious one and most straightforward, is h takes g6. Here the white pieces simply respond with rook h3 checkmate, because this knight takes up the exit square of the king, and overall this is a beautiful, I don't think we can classify it as a Anastasius checkmate, but let's just say, usually the knight is here, but I think this passes. Number two is f takes g6, also a breathtaking variation. Here's the same mating net, but somehow it's just even more beautiful, because on top of sacrificing the queen, you now sacrifice the knight for 1 pawn total. Like, the transaction here is off the charts. 12 points for 1 point. Hello. H takes g6, and now rook h3 checkmate. There is literally one rook guarding the back rank mate, okay, from this queen c1, and one rook checking the king along a file, and one knight attacked twice that is taking up one square. One square does the job here to checkmate two rooks that are absolutely useless, a bishop that has not seen the light of day since its birth, a knight that has been dazzling through the board without future, and this queen who has been chilling and enjoying this loss. Another variation is that, I forgot to mention too, you're not only sacrificing a queen, you're sacrificing a knight here. You're sacrificing a queen and a knight at the same time. It's just arrogant at this point, you know? It's just selfish. So g takes f6 is very possible while your queen hangs by the neck. And here you take on f6. Knight g7 is forced. If the king goes to g8, you have rook g3 check, forcing the knight to g7 or g5, and then you have queen takes g7 checkmate. Now if knight g7, here you play the same move, rook g3, double teaming up on this knight, and now rook g8 is the only move that defends this knight a second time, undefending this f7 pawn, and now you can play knight takes f7. Again, there's a smothered mate in this game. Like, this game already had a 10 out of 10, and then you put a smothered mate make-believe here. I don't know what's going on. Knight takes f7, queen takes, and then here we're like plus a queen up. It's very well over. There are two more variations, and trust me, I'm leaving the best one for the end because I know you. You like the splendid, the amazing, the phantasm, right? So here there's the knight g5, which is still a mediocre line. It just gives a knight. And honestly, you can't take my knight either on f6 because we have the mate we talked about. Boom, boom, tau, ping over here. And finally, you have queen c2, which somehow defends on h7 and says hello to the queen, attacking the queen. Like, just think of the uselessness of the black pieces. You need to attack the queen a third time to try to attack the queen. So there's a little problem there. But anyways, here the white pieces... How do you even go about your day after this? As the black pieces, that's an absolute violation. And I'm dumbfounded. Here, white just does not care of a third pressure point on this queen. Says, you know what, I'm just going to use this queen as a blocker from this intermediate queen defending to just threaten mate a different way on h7. And it absolutely works. Let's say you go queen takes. Here I go knight takes g6. And after you take here, it's a different pattern, right? We take on h7 with checkmate. Absolutely mind-blowing. If, say, h6 to defend the h7 square, we just have this. This is just like petty change at this point. This is like a side mention. And then if anything other than knight g5, it would be checkmate on h7. But now we don't have it because knight g5 is the last move that defends this h7 square. And so here we just go off with queen takes g5. And here again, you can just go off with the same situation. You can take this knight and you cannot take on f6 because it's mate. But there's an even nicer thing that's, okay, a little bit less good, but it's still plus 22, so who's counting? Here we have knight takes f7, which is just such a cool tactic. And here, if black takes with the knight, well, you disconnected and deflected the knight off of h7. We have checkmate. And if you take with the rook here, it's a free queen. It's a free queen. It's a free queen. It is a free queen, and you're offering it while offering a rook with check, taking back, and you still cannot take my queen, because if you do, you're deflected off the 8th rank. And we said we had back rank problems. We didn't talk about black's back rank problems. Look at this mate. And so here we are threatening mate, so you can't just like go about with your day with your rook. No, you have to take my knight. Then we take your rook, and then we take your bishop. Full queen up. I'm done. This game is too fun. Every time I see it, it's just a pearl. You know, it's just like a diamond, and it sparks the entire room. Beautiful. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did filming it. Have an amazing day, and thank you so much for watching The Chess Nerd. My name is Zach. I'm a 21-year-old college student. Nice to meet you.